The alarm screamed through every corridor of Orion 7 station, its shrill wail bouncing off the steel walls, cutting through the hum of life support systems and the frantic chatter of terrified civilians. Smoke hissed from ruptured conduits as lights flickered, turning the crowded hub into a theater of shadows. Outside, the void itself seemed to boil. 47 warships hung in perfect formation, each a monstrous sculpture of metal and fire, their weapons trained on the station. Their hum was a constant reminder that every second brought the inevitable closer. The station's modest defense fleet, 10 corvettes, 3 frigates, and a lone cruiser, had already been annihilated minutes ago. There had been no surprise. There had been no chance. The civilians huddled in shelters, eyes wide, gripping whatever fragments of hope they could find. Families clutched each other, praying that someone, anyone, would arrive. But deep in their hearts, they knew the truth. No help would come. The signal for reinforcements had been sent hours ago, and the response was slow, constrained by the sheer expanse of space. By the time anyone could arrive, the shields would have failed. 3 days. That was all they had. 3 days until Orion 7's shields flickered and died. 3 days before the vacuum of space claimed everything and everyone inside. The station commander, Captain Ilara Voss, stood on the command deck, staring at the enemy formation through reinforced viewports. She calculated, with the cold precision that only desperation could forge, the scale of their predicament. 40,000 civilians under her protection, 3 days until extinction, 47 enemy warships with firepower enough to reduce the station to cosmic dust in hours. Her mind raced through possibilities, every conceivable tactic, every last chance of escape, but the math refused to lie. Even if they evacuated every civilian, even if every defensive system fired without pause, the sheer magnitude of the enemy force made survival impossible. "Status report," she barked, her voice slicing through the panic around her. "Shields holding at 60%, dropping steadily," came the reply, the technician's voice trembling. "Life support stable for now, but only for hours if we take another hit." Ilara's jaw clenched. There were no contingencies. There were no miracles. Not yet. Outside, the warships shifted in eerie synchrony. The void seemed to darken as their weapons powered up, a silent signal of annihilation. She could almost hear the countdown of doom ticking in the hearts of every soul on Orion 7. Unless something miraculous happened, they were already dead. And yet, as the first volley of plasma flares ignited the space between the station and its executioners, a distant shadow appeared beyond the enemy fleet. It moved with impossible speed, a lone warship, screaming from the void itself, engines burning like a comet of defiance. Hope, or perhaps disbelief, flickered in the eyes of those who had already given up. From the bridge of the flagship Oblivion, Admiral Kale Thynn watched the glittering cluster of Kepler Station through reinforced viewports. His uniform was immaculate, his posture rigid, but his eyes gleamed with a predator's satisfaction. Around him, the bridge crew moved like synchronized instruments, executing orders with the precision of a single mind. "Look at them, cowering like insects," Thynn said, voice low and cold, carrying easily across the bridge speakers. 40,000 lives. 47 warships. 3 days. They think they have a chance. They are deluded. He paused, letting the weight of inevitability sink into every heart present. "Prepare the orbital cannons. Target civilian sectors first. Panic will be their undoing. The evacuation ships, destroy them on sight. Leave no sanctuary, no hope." The tactical officer nodded and activated the targeting array. Each blip on the holographic display represented a terrified soul scrambling for escape. The enemy admiral leaned forward, tracing the lines of civilian pods with his gloved finger. "Predictable," he murmured. "They always try to flee. They always cling to life. And we will always crush them." The War Council around him murmured approval, their loyalty absolute. Thyn's eyes shifted to a live feed from the outer docks. One by one, the evacuation ships lifted off, engines blazing against the vacuum, only to be shredded mid-flight by precision plasma barrages. Explosions bloomed in the void like violent supernovae. Screams echoed in the feed, the soundless horror of space captured in trembling human faces. "They think evacuations will save them," Thynn said, voice rising with satisfaction. "But we have studied their behavior. We have calculated their every move. Their fear is as predictable as the sun rising. And fear is delicious. He turned to the communications officer. Open a channel to the station. Let them hear our voice. Let them know the inevitability of their doom. A cold, unyielding transmission crackled across the void. Citizens of Kepler Station, your resistance is meaningless. 47 of our vessels have surrounded you. Your defenses are gone. Your reinforcements are hours away at best. Surrender is unnecessary. You will die, and we will mark your extinction as a lesson to the rest of this sector. Admire the futility of your struggle before it ends. The Admiral's hand rested lightly on the console, almost tenderly, as if caressing the fates of 40,000 trapped souls. The officers watched the panic spread through the station sensors, savoring the chaos and despair like a fine vintage. Notice their desperation, Tinkerwennen said. Notice the stations trying to hide behind shields, the futile countermeasures. Their fear sharpens our victory. He leaned back, eyes narrowing, confident, unshakable. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for the bridge crew. They had crushed 43 worlds before. Kepler Station will be 44. And with that, the void outside the station seemed darker, heavier, as if it already mourned the inevitable end of everything inside. In the bowels of Kepler Station, the engineering crew worked with white-knuckled intensity. Sparks flew from overloaded conduits as shields flickered under the relentless pressure of the enemy bombardment. Every panel, every circuit, every backup generator was straining, holding against forces no human mind was meant to endure. Sweat dripped down foreheads, fingers trembling as they patched breaches in real time. Shields at 42%, 39, 36, one engineer shouted, voice cracking. If this keeps up, we won't last another hour. Above them, in the medical bay, doctors and medics moved methodically through the corridors, preparing for casualties they knew were inevitable. Stretchers were lined up, trauma kits stacked in anticipation, oxygen generators tested and retested. Nurses held the hands of crying children, whispering words they didn't entirely believe themselves. A small boy tugged at the sleeve of Lieutenant Caravas. Is help coming? Are the humans coming to save us? Kara knelt to meet his gaze, forcing a calm she didn't feel. We're doing everything we can. Reinforcements, they're on their way. Her lie was a fragile shield, as thin as the station's failing energy barriers. Around them, families clung together, eyes wide, listening to the low hum of the station's dying defenses. Fear was palpable, a living thing that slithered through the corridors and into hearts. Commander Ilara Voss moved silently among the stations of her officers, exchanging terse nods and silent encouragements. Every face she passed was etched with worry. She gave reports, reassured the crew, held the line of command, but inside, she knew, they were waiting for a miracle, and miracles were exceedingly rare. Then the sensors blinked. An anomaly. Lieutenant Jamir's eyes widened as he stared at the readouts. Commander, you need to see this. Fold space readings, there's something moving at. Ilara leaned over, scanning the display. The readings defied every calculation. A massive object, or several, cutting across space faster than anything they had ever catalogued. Not just fast. Ridiculously, impossibly fast. It's too fast to be human, Jamir muttered, uncertainty and awe tangled in his voice. The anomaly didn't trigger the enemy sensors, not yet. The warships continued their methodical strafing of the station, ignoring the strange fold space signature as if it were irrelevant, invisible, insignificant. Ilara felt a strange tension coil in her chest. Part fear, part hope. The station still teetered on the edge of annihilation, yet something had arrived, or was arriving. Something completely outside their understanding. Medical teams continued their grim preparations, shielding the children from the growing panic. Engineers were still patching shields that groaned under the barrage. And all the while, the anomaly grew, inching closer with impossible speed, an unseen predator racing through the void. Ilara's hands clenched the edge of a console, knuckles white. She had no idea what was coming, no idea if it was friend or foe, but instinct told her it was no ordinary ship. Something about the way the readings shifted, folded, and accelerated carried a weight beyond comprehension. Something was coming. And it was moving far too fast to be sane. The bridge of the USS Resolute vibrated with stress. The engines screamed in protest as energy outputs climbed far beyond rated limits. Sparks danced along control panels, warning lights flaring in frantic red bursts. The AI, calm and precise as ever, had already flagged multiple systems at critical failure. "Captain," the AI intoned, voice smooth but insistent, "the probability of survival at this output is statistically negligible. We are exceeding all safe operational parameters." Captain Marcus Varen leaned forward, eyes fixed on the folding space anomaly ahead. He didn't flinch. Numbers, probabilities, safety margins, they were all irrelevant here. There were lives at stake, and humans did not surrender to math. "Probability be damned," he said, voice low but ironclad. "Every second counts. We're not letting them die while we calculate odds." An officer, Lieutenant Aaron Talo, hesitated at the tactical console. "Sir, we could disengage. Pull back, reset the engines. Wait for the warp vector to stabilize." "This could wait." Varen snapped, his gaze sharp as a blade. "While 40,000 souls sit under those enemy guns. Every second of hesitation is another death sentence. What are their survival odds without us?" "Zero," the officer admitted, voice trembling slightly. "Then 23% is infinitely better," Varen said, almost smiling. "Take the engines to maximum. All systems. No holding back. We're breaking the rules because the universe doesn't care about rules." The AI's calm voice sounded again. "Captain, structural integrity is now at 32%. Engine cores will reach critical in—" "Not my problem," Varen interrupted. He turned to his crew, voice rising with authority and conviction. "Humanity has never survived by following the book. When lives are on the line, we ignore the math. We ignore the warnings. We do what has to be done. This is our line, crew. We either save them, or we do nothing while the void swallows innocence." Hands flew over consoles, recalibrating power conduits, rerouting energy through every available system. The Resolute groaned under the strain, metal bending, shields flickering. Outside, the fold space anomaly pulsed, its impossible speed slicing across the void. "Course set," Varen barked. "Engage. Full burn. Let the engines scream and the stars bend. We're going in." The officer glanced at the AI. "Captain, if the core breaches—" Varen cut him off, voice resolute. "If the core breaches, then the price is worth it. Every life saved is worth the risk. You calculate odds when the universe is kind. We act when it isn't." The AI fell silent, as if conceding. No system could argue with the human heart driving its captain forward. The Resolute surged, folding space around it, a silver bullet piercing the darkness, moving faster than reason, faster than expectation, faster than fear. Somewhere ahead, Kepler Station waited, oblivious to the impossible rescue barreling toward it. And somewhere inside that chaos, humanity, reckless, defiant, unstoppable, would break the rules of survival itself. The void itself seemed to tremble. From the distant shimmer of fold space, a streak of silver lightning tore through the darkness. USS Resolute emerged without warning, engines screaming at 1.8 times the rated warp limit, shields pulsing with stress beyond known tolerances. Every sensor in the enemy fleet screamed in alarm. Nothing like this had ever been seen. "Impossible," muttered Admiral Cale Terwinen, voice barely audible over the chaos of the Bridge of the Oblivion. "They cannot." But the humans did. The station itself trembled as the Resolute tore a path through the void, its hull glowing red from the sheer energy of overtaxed engines. 47 enemy warships pivoted desperately, but reaction was futile. Their targeting systems were calibrated for conventional velocities, not the obscene speed at which the human ship moved, nearly 2,500 kilometers per second in real space, engines groaning like a wounded beast, tearing doctrine apart with every pulse. "Captain, sensors can't keep up." "There," Lieutenant Aaron Talo shouted. "I know." Marcus Varen barked. "Full intercept. No slowing. Break the rules, break the calculations, just get us there." The Resolute did not glide. It thundered, shattering expectations, cutting a clean line directly toward Kepler Station. Hull plating scorched, systems warning, AI screaming in warnings, but the captain ignored them all. Velocity numbers climbed beyond comprehension, 2,750 kilometers per second, 3,000. Every increment a slap to every human and alien doctrine of survival. Below, the civilians on Kepler station pressed faces against viewports, seeing the impossible approach like a comet of salvation. Station sensors registered the streak as a blur, a distortion of reality itself. Engineers froze mid-gesture, medics caught in stunned silence. Children gasped, whispering prayers they didn't fully understand, hoping this was not a dream. The enemy fleet opened fire, targeting the human ship with everything they had, plasma lances burning trails through the void. Shields flared, armor melted, but the Resolute did not slow. Every volley was dodged by velocity alone, impossible to track, impossible to predict, impossible to stop. Course set to station. Varen shouted. Nothing in the galaxy can touch us now. Full engines. Let's see how Doctrine likes being broken. The bridge crew worked in perfect chaos, shunting power, venting overpressure, rerouting energy to the engines. Lights flickered violently. Sparks flew. The AI's comm voice had evolved into alarmed notifications. Structural integrity critical. Hull temperature exceeding maximum. Probability of survival negligible. Negligible is better than zero. Varen yelled, voice roaring over the alarms. Seconds later, the Resolute slammed into the space between the enemy and Kepler station, a silver hammer of humanity's defiance. The enemy fleet faltered, their lines broken, their calculations rendered meaningless. The station shuddered as shields flared and human cannons roared, the first volley ripping through enemy vessels with surgical precision. It was over almost as soon as it began. It was the shortest space battle in history, or the most spectacular. The Void had never seen violence like this. The USS Resolute moved like a predator, engine screaming, hull glowing with the energy of impossible speeds. Mass drivers charged to relativistic velocities, each projectile a silver streak capable of turning destroyers into cosmic dust before they even realized they were under fire. Target destroyers 1 through 7, Captain Marcus Varen ordered, voice calm but deadly. Let's see how Doctrine handles pure brutality. The crew obeyed with machine-like precision. Guns roared, discharging with timing impossible to track. Destroyers exploded in a chain reaction, metal and plasma shredded across the void. Sensors aboard the enemy flagship registered the strikes too late, and by the time countermeasures activated, the vessels were gone, obliterated, unrecognizable, and utterly irrelevant. "Admiral!" a Tetragrammaid shouted, voice tight with disbelief. How? They can't be hitting targets that fast." "They fight differently," Tetragrammaid muttered, his hands tightening around the console. "Humans, they fight like predators. They don't engage honorably. They dance through us." And dance they did. The Resolute weaved between volleys of plasma and missile fire, twisting through the enemy fleet with impossible agility, engines groaning under stress. No sensor could predict the path, no targeting array could lock on. One moment the ship was behind a cruiser, the next it appeared alongside a frigate, mass drivers tearing through its hull. Every move brutal, every strike decisive, every maneuver a statement. Humans ignored elegance, they ignored tradition, they ignored the rules of warfare. The alien fleet, trained for structured battle, formation fighting, disciplined volleys, faltered. Their coordination collapsed under the chaotic ferocity of the human attack. Plasma lances meant to shield one another instead collided in midspace. Shields flared and failed. Confusion spread faster than any weapon fire. Inside the Resolute, the crew worked in perfect sync, each command and countermeasure flowing naturally, instinctually. Tactical Officer Aaron Taylor called out targets, engineers fed energy directly into weapons, AI handled calculations no human could process. It was a ballet of destruction, but one with teeth, brutal, efficient, unstoppable. Varen leaned over the console, eyes scanning the carnage. Humans fight clean when it's convenient. But when lives are on the line, brutality becomes an art form. Even the enemy began to feel it. Fear, subtle at first, then sharp, palpable. Tetragrammaid's bridge crew glanced nervously at one another as aftershocks of destruction rippled through their fleet. Ships that had survived the first onslaught were now scrambling for position, shields flickering, engines straining, morale breaking. "Captain," Aaron muttered, voice low. "They're scared." Varen's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Good. Let them be afraid. Fear makes them predictable. Fear makes them weak. And we are relentless." The Resolute tore through the remaining destroyers, mass drivers blazing, plasma burns trailing like ribbons of fury. The alien fleet reeled, formation broken, strategy rendered meaningless. The station watched from orbit, trembling but alive, as humanity's defiance reshaped the battlefield in real time. Humans fought messy. Humans fought brutal. And now, the enemy feared them. The USS Resolute shuddered violently. Hull plating twisted, scorched, and tore as enemy fire rained down from every angle. Systems screamed failures in rapid succession. Shields flickered, engines groaned, and warning lights bathed the bridge in a sickly red glow. The ship was surrounded, a silver bullet trapped inside a cage of relentless warships. Structural integrity at 14%. The AI warned, calm and clinical, as if reporting a mundane statistic. Captain Marcus Varen ignored it. "I see the numbers," he said, voice steady, "and I see our options. 0, 1. Doesn't matter. We take the fight to them." The crew worked frantically, rerouting every available joule of energy to the main weapon array. Life support systems were sacrificed first. The corridors hissed as oxygen levels dropped. Artificial gravity shut down. Crew floated in sudden weightlessness, tethered only by instinct and straps. Sparks flew as consoles overloaded. "We take their flagship with us," Varen said, eyes locked on the holographic projection of Admiral Theron's Oblivion. "No mercy. No retreat. No hope for them. Only us and the fight." The Resolute's main cannon roared to life, its charge glowing with energy stolen from the dying systems of the ship itself. The beam coalesced, a concentrated spear of light, searing through the void. Enemy ships fired in desperation, volleys meant to scatter or cripple, but it was too late. The beam hit the flagship directly. Oblivion shuddered, hull buckling under the force. Plasma shields flickered and then collapsed, metal groaning like it was alive. In moments, the flagship was consumed in a blinding explosion, disintegrating into fragments of fire and radiation that streaked across space. The remaining enemy vessels faltered. Chaos spread like wildfire through their fleet. Fear, long dormant, flared into panic. Retreat orders echoed through their communications, shouts of disbelief, terror, and rage. Humanity had broken their rhythm, shattered their confidence, and now their pride. On the bridge of the Resolute, silence fell, pierced only by the groans of the dying ship. Marcus Varen's hands gripped the console, knuckles white. The weight of the sacrifice pressed down, but there was no regret. Crew floated past him, tethered and exhausted, faces pale but alive. Some whispered prayers, others stared at the void, awestruck at what humanity had just accomplished. Varen's chest heaved. Every system screamed, every warning blared, but the enemy was gone. For a brief, fragile moment, the universe felt quiet. And then the captain collapsed. Floating, weightless, exhausted, the last of his strength spent to save thousands of lives. His eyes closed not in defeat, but in the knowledge that what he had done mattered. Humanity had won, if only by inches, if only by sheer will. The station below trembled and then stabilized, shields flickering back online as engineers and survivors worked to repair the battered infrastructure. The civilians, terrified but alive, looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, in the darkness of space, humanity had made a statement. Courage, defiance, and sacrifice could defy even impossible odds. And in that moment, Marcus Varen was the embodiment of that truth. The void was quiet. For the first time in what felt like eternity, Kepler Station floated untouched by fire, its shields flickering back to life under the careful hands of engineers. Rescue teams moved swiftly, shuttles darting between the station and the battered remains of the enemy fleet. 40,000 civilians had survived. Every last one accounted for, though some bore scars, physical, emotional, or both. Medical teams triaged the injured, comforting those too shaken to speak. Children clung to parents, eyes wide, whispering names of heroes they would never forget. On the command deck of the remaining human fleet, the alien admiral's ship, diminished and trembling, drifted into view. Admiral Kale Techarwanan stared at the Resolute, battered but unbroken, and asked the question that had haunted him throughout the battle. Why? Captain Marcus Varen, still exhausted, floating tethered in zero gravity, met the alien's gaze without hesitation. His voice was calm, unwavering. Because they needed help. Silence followed. No answer could explain the audacity, the speed, the sheer recklessness of humanity, but the truth of it was undeniable. Humans acted when others hesitated. Humans refused to leave anyone behind. Weeks later, the survivors gathered in a ceremonial hangar on Kepler Station. Awards and honors were given, medals glinting under artificial light, plaques celebrating courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Children presented flowers, letters, and crude drawings of the Resolute tearing through space. Some had never left their shelters during the siege, yet even they knew they owed their lives to strangers who came from a galaxy away. Varen, still recovering, knelt to speak with a small girl. She looked up at him, eyes shining, clutching a toy shuttle. "Did you save us all?" she asked, barely able to whisper. "We did," he replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. "And as long as humans are out there, we'll do it again. Every time. No one is ever truly alone in the galaxy." The promise hung in the air, simple yet profound. Across the station, engineers returned to work, children laughed in the corridors, and humanity's presence radiated like a quiet pulse of hope. Even alien observers could sense the change. The galaxy would remember. The stories of courage, defiance, and relentless resolve spread faster than any fleet. Humans moved where others feared, broke every doctrine, ignored impossible odds. And the legacy was clear. When someone called for help, when the helpless faced annihilation, humanity answered. No hesitation. No calculations of risk. No turning away. When the galaxy hears a distress call, human ships come howling from the void. Because we leave no one behind.